Who hasn't wondered what really happens in cities when the lights go out? Amid silence and solitude, terror reveals itself in ways that challenge even the darkest imagination. At night, when we least expect it, urban life can turn into a true horror scene. These real facts show that danger is closer than many think, waiting only for a moment of distraction to emerge. Do you believe you know your city well? These urban horror stories bring a new perspective on safety, revealing a world where the improbable becomes real. It doesn't matter if we're at home, walking down an empty street, or just relaxing in an apparently harmless park. The truth is, at night, danger feels more tangible and closer than we dare imagine. Each dark corner hides a new story waiting to be uncovered. Get ready to dive into terrifying accounts that will make you think twice before going out at night. These experiences remind us that fear is real, and the city holds dark secrets for those who dare to see beyond appearances. Are you ready to discover what truly lurks when night falls? That night, I was just a child, with only a dim flashlight to light the dark hallway of my family's ranch. Everyone was sleeping deeply, and I lay on the floor, trying to find comfort in the absolute silence. But the silence was broken by a strange sound. Laughter, faint, distant, like a whisper echoing in the darkness. Was it real, or was my mind playing tricks? Have you ever wondered if the sounds you hear in the dark are just your mind, or something much darker? The laughter continued, growing clearer, and my curiosity turned to dread. I tried to focus, searching for any movement in the hallway, but all I saw was darkness. Suddenly, a figure appeared, a girl, just a shadow in the distance. She seemed to float, wrapped in shadows, her face lit by a cold, sinister smile. The terror that filled my body was overwhelming. Imagine feeling the icy stare of a figure that shouldn't be there, and knowing there's nowhere to run. I could barely breathe, trapped between terror and the need to know what she was. It felt as if the figure was mocking me, feeding on my fear. The laughter turned sharper, and I felt my skin crawl as if every nerve was on edge. Here, a silent pause chilled me to the bone. Each second of waiting was an invitation for the terror to deepen. But what would happen next? Would she still be there when I woke up? That question remains. At the ranch, isolation was total, and darkness ruled the nights without mercy. With no electricity, we relied solely on candles and the occasional battery-powered flashlight. Each night, the profound silence and absolute darkness created an atmosphere that put everyone on edge, as if the very environment were watching. Imagine yourself in a place where every sound is amplified, where every shadow seems to hold ancient secrets, and where fear becomes your constant companion. That loneliness, that darkness, it was as if the ranch had a life of its own. The nights grew long and unsettling, each noise echoing like a warning of something unknown. The rustling of leaves, the creaking of a floorboard, and even the soft sound of wind cutting through the air were enough to make skin crawl. In that setting, any presence felt more real, more intense, as if the lack of light strengthened the invisible. Fear in the rural darkness is different. There's nitrogen monoxide, immediate escape only, silence and waiting. What if you weren't alone in the darkness? There, without city distractions, fear seeped into thoughts, turning the familiar into the threatening. The dim candlelight danced on the walls, casting shapes that seemed to come alive. Each shadow cast was a reminder that, at the ranch, darkness brought stories and presences that didn't belong to the living. And so, the feeling of being watched grew, night after night, like a weight that couldn't be ignored. But what else hid in those shadows? To this day, I can't imagine what it could have been. One night, as I tried to calm my nerves, I saw something that chilled me to the bone. Through the slightly open door, I saw the face of a girl, shrouded in shadows, but with eyes that seemed to glow in the darkness. She didn't move. She just watched me, with a smile that mixed innocence and something much darker. Time seemed to stop, and all I could do was stare back, frozen by terror. Have you ever felt that, even without moving, someone can threaten you? Her smile seemed to mock me, a fixed expression that conveyed a malicious feeling, as if she were amused by my fear. I tried to convince myself it was a dream, a fleeting vision, but that penetrating stare, that terrifying expression, felt all too real. Each passing second left me more terrified, as if she could come through the door at any moment. Imagine seeing something like that and not being able to scream, not being able to move, feeling fear grow with each breath. The terror was inside my mind, but it was also real before my eyes. Her presence lingered, motionless but intensely alive in my mind, and I knew I would never forget that stare. Each second, the weight of fear became more unbearable, as if her image were etched into the very air I breathed. Finally, I tried to look away, but her image was already engraved in my mind, a deep, disturbing mark that would never fade. And then I realized, maybe that figure was closer than I thought. I was paralyzed with fear when suddenly I felt something cold touch my ribs. Thin, icy fingers, as if darkness itself were grabbing me. The girl, that figure that had seemed only a vision until then, was now there, physically present, pressing her fingers into my skin. Each touch was a blow of terror, as if death itself were surrounding me. Have you ever felt a presence that touches you but shouldn't be there? The feeling of her cold hand against my skin was terrifying. I couldn't scream, I couldn't move. I was trapped in a living nightmare. Each touch stole my breath, and the panic grew with a crushing intensity. It was as if each second she stole a piece of my sanity, leaving behind a trail of fear that only I could feel. The silence of the night enveloped the ranch, amplifying each frantic beat of my heart. A moment of pause, as if even time had stopped, and that touch continued. Finally, in a flash of desperation, I let out a scream that seemed to echo forever, but somehow no one seemed to hear. My voice faded into the night, and that malevolent touch remained, like a shadow feeding on my fear. It was as if the world around me had disappeared, leaving only me and that dark presence clinging to my skin. And there I stayed, unable to escape the terror materializing before me. Even after that malevolent touch vanished, the feeling of terror didn't leave me. I screamed, called for my brother and my parents, but it was as if my voice was swallowed by the oppressive silence. The sense of vulnerability consumed me, as if I were alone in a world where no one could hear me. Have you ever felt invisible, like you were screaming without anyone able to help? That was the kind of terror that goes beyond a physical presence. It was the certainty that I was trapped in the unknown. No matter how much I tried to convince myself it was just a nightmare, the fear persisted, ingrained like an invisible mark on the environment around me. Every sound, every movement in the shadows felt like a reminder that I would never be safe there. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, my father heard my screams and came to me, but the presence vanished as quickly as it had appeared. The silence that followed was deafening, a pause marking terror's victory over reason. Even with the presence gone, the fear continued to haunt me, becoming part of my story. That night left a deep mark, something that wouldn't disappear with daylight. The ranch, once a place of peace, now carried a dark weight, and I knew I'd never look at that hallway the same way again. There was something beyond human understanding there, a force that would make me remember forever. The unknown is real, and it waits only for a moment of vulnerability to reveal itself. But how many others live with this same shadow? These stories show us that true terror doesn't need isolated places to manifest. It can appear on city streets, in building hallways, or even within the safety of our own homes. And you, do you still think you know your city well? These real facts reveal the hidden side of urban life, where night turns the ordinary into something frightening and makes us question what we really know about the world around us. So next time you walk alone or hear a strange sound in the silence, remember, the unknown may be closer than you think. The city never sleeps, and danger is always lurking, waiting for a moment of carelessness. These stories teach us that courage isn't just about facing fear, but also knowing when to trust our instincts and protect what matters. If you want to keep uncovering the dark, hidden side of cities, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. That way, you'll always be one step ahead, ready to face the next urban mystery. Who knows, in the next story, you might be even closer to the terror.